Hey guys, it's been a while since I've connected with y'all. I haven't been on Discord or Twitter at all, so I figured this is a good time to do an AMA of some sorts. I asked you guys to send me any questions, comments, and criticism, so I'm just gonna go through them now. Do you want more scientists to run for public office? It feels like there's a significant lack of knowledge and or disregard of it in places where it really matters. Yes, I personally think there should be more scientists involved in the decision making for our country. There are just too many politicians right now that simply either deny science or prioritize their own interests over what is best for society as a whole, either because they so strongly believe in it themselves or they have the wrong opinion on something. If you hold so much power as to make essential decisions for other people, you better be informed or at least somewhat humble enough to admit that your opinions don't matter against the facts. Scientists understand that the best because, well, they're part of the scientific process. So I don't necessarily think it has to be scientists that run for public office, but at the very least people who are humble enough who work with scientists that make the best decision for society. But of course, that's not to say scientists are these perfect beings that will get nothing wrong, but I have no doubt that it'll at least be better than people whose only experience lies in working within a certain political party. Happy New Year's. Okay, now for the question. With the first use of an mRNA vaccine for COVID, where do you see it going from here? What other things will we be able to incorporate this technology in? Happy New Year. This is a good question. With the arrival of the first mRNA vaccines, we've implemented a new technology that could potentially change all vaccines in the future. Now, if you don't know how mRNA vaccines work, ensure it enters your own cells, and we can trigger an immune response and to produce antibodies based on that sequence we injected. The concept is very simple, but it took a long time for us to get here. That being said, mRNA vaccines in theory sounds amazing. Now, instead of using traditional vaccine technology, all we have to do is change the mRNA sequence within the vaccine, and then bam, we should have a vaccine for literally any disease out there. However, it's simple in theory, but difficult in practice. For an unknown reason, our bodies react differently to different vaccines and diseases. Some we have great reactions to, some not so much. So just changing the mRNA sequence won't give us the magic vaccine for any disease we want. For each new vaccine using this technology, we would have to actually test as if it's completely new. And we're going to have successes and we're going to have failures. It's just the way it is. Why the body reacts so differently depending on the disease or vaccine is a mystery. So yeah, great in theory, but difficult in practice. That being said, I don't want to be too pessimistic about this because this does indeed give us an additional option when it comes to the production of new vaccines, and that I think is fantastic already. Have you ever thought about debating someone in real life, whether it is live or it is recorded and then uploaded? Yes, I definitely have. During the days when I was growing a lot, I've been invited many times to live talks or to engage in live debates. And sadly to say, I've declined most of them. And to this day, I haven't had a single live debate. Don't get me wrong, I don't think I'm bad at live debates or anything. Usually my videos, the script that I write are things that come up to my head immediately, so I don't think the quality of my arguments would decline in a live setting. But I haven't engaged in a live debate for two major reasons. The first is that, well, I'm pretty busy at the moment. I'm actually amazed myself on how I'm able to even get a video out once per week. It's difficult to make time and to prepare for a debate. The second reason is, well, I just don't particularly see the value in it. In a live debate, at the end of the day, the person who comes out on top is usually the person who is better at debating. Things like talking confidently, thinking of ideas quickly, being able to debunk your opponent are essential skills. But one thing that weighs a lot more in live settings is, unfortunately, the ability to talk over each other. I personally think the skills to a live debate is much different than the ability to reason, think logically, and portray your ideas effectively. Just because someone talks a lot in a debate and gets more points across doesn't mean that person has the correct position. It just means they're better at talking. So at the end of the day, live debates are fun to watch, but I'm more interested in the ideas themselves rather than the ability to debate. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, wish you and your family the best. Same to you. Question, looking back, do you think there was more devastation caused by COVID or the reaction to COVID? I'm Australian, and after March 2020, I was beginning to doubt the reactions from everyone and believed it was politicized. I love vaccines. What the government forced me to do was take an unnecessary vaccine in order to keep my job. Plus, my family did a lot of infighting, which isn't resolved still. I didn't ask for COVID restrictions. I was perfectly happy to let the small majority of small minority of people at risk go to a 5-star hotel for a year or two on my tax money. Didn't need to destroy every single small business in a couple years. Thank you for your question. The first thing I will say is that it's easy to assume how something could have went since you've only experienced it in one way. In this situation specifically, it's easy to see the negatives of a situation you're in, while also oversighting how much worse it could have been. Until you actually conduct some studies that estimate other possibilities, it's difficult to get the full picture. But what I can say is for COVID, if left uncontrolled, would definitely have been much worse, not just on the economy, but also on society as a whole. Hospitals would be overrun, leading to countless deaths, lack of supplies, and the downstream effects would be enormous too. Sick people can't work, dead people can't work. The economic downturn would be so much worse than if lockdowns were implemented, which we actually have shown in scientific studies out there. So the short answer to your question, it's easy to see the negative effects of lockdowns without recognizing that without them, it would have been worse. That being said, the way you enforce lockdowns, run hospitals, distribute supplies, organize people is important too. And if done incorrectly, you wouldn't be helping that much. As a bit of an oversimplified visualization, think of this in a 1 to 10 scale, from the best case scenario to the worst case. If we let COVID run free without any regulations, we'd be at a 10, let's say. But depending on how you handle the pandemic, it could be anywhere from a 1 to 9. That being said, I do think most countries are above a 5 because we did so little to prepare for a pandemic, which is stupid in my opinion. Long before COVID came along, I've been a proponent of increasing our budget in attention to preparing for the next pandemic. But anyway, the point is, your country may be at a 7 or 8, which is pretty bad, but without any measures, you'd be at a 10. Happy New Year, Professor Stick. Looking forward to the new year. Thank you. I hope you also have a wonderful new year too. This video is actually being released over a week after I actually recorded this video, so it's probably been many days after January 1st, but Happy New Year anyway. I'm sure you're busy with your career, but I would never be mad at longer videos that are more in-depth. You also mentioned at one point making in-depth videos on cancer and or videos on your career and its connection to cancer, but 100% would like to learn more on cancer in your specific style. Would the above be in your view for the future of the channel? Thank you for reminding me about that cancer topic I've always wanted to make. To your first part, yes, I know my videos are pretty short. I'm sorry about that. I upload once a week and my videos are around 10 minutes maximum. Meanwhile, other channels like Vice Rhino releases every 3 to 4 days and have 30-minute videos. I'm slow in comparison. I still remember when I was in college and had time, so I made like 2 videos per week, which I guess is still nothing compared to Vice Rhino. The reason I'm busy is actually not because of my career, though. I'm actually content with where I'm at and just working 40 hours a week as normal, but I've picked up a lot of other hobbies and such that is sucking up all my time. That being said, I do plan to continue with my regular schedule on this channel, and making a video going more in depth about cancer is a good topic that I'll consider doing. A video like that would take some time, so I'll see how that will fit with my schedule or if I'll have to make sacrifices, such as not uploading for a week. But yeah, very exciting, but we'll have to see. With the recent water cutbacks on the Colorado River and with the Hurricane Ian a couple months ago wiping out entire coastal communities, what are your thoughts on the encouragement of population growth and agriculture in areas that are vulnerable to climate change in the United States? Arid environments, Phoenix, Los Angeles, and low-lying coastal areas, Miami, New Orleans. Do you think the policies that are in place now, such as sea retention walls and water cuts, will be enough to combat these threats? Wow, that's a complicated question, and I wasn't prepared for. Honestly, I've only thought a little about this, and by no means am I an expert without doing any extensive research. I think yes, it's fine to encourage growth in the areas you mentioned, but you have to do it with a good foresight in mind. The Colorado River is being sucked dry of its water due to greedy practices currently in place, and supplying water to cities that are essentially sitting on top of deserts is a task that requires long-term considerations. Things like water cuts seems like a good idea to me, but I think the longer-term solution would be water conservation efforts and technology. At the end of the day, it'll have to be a combination of factors, both short-term and long-term, that will solve this issue. But again, I'm not an expert here, and I haven't been up to date on the situation, so I won't say any more. How do you feel about the first video you made? What are some good or bad parts of it? I remember when I made my first video, my mentality was, okay, it could be better, but it's my first video, and I'll improve as I go along. Now that I think about it, I haven't really made that many improvements. I guess my narration and sound editing is slightly better, but my overall style hasn't changed at all. But yeah, for my first few videos, I put like no effort into the script. It was hard because I felt like there were tons of channels out there that already had explained things in really fantastic ways that I couldn't really find a good way to stand out myself. For example, if a creationist was talking about thermodynamics, why should I explain it in my way if someone like King Crocoduck already did such a fantastic job at it? So yeah, I had a lot of difficulty finding my niche at first, and even now I don't really find my channel to be particularly special compared to the dozens and hundreds of skeptic channels out there. So to be honest, I don't know why you guys are watching my videos at all. Sorry, I've gone on to a tangent. In short, watching my first video again makes me cringe a little bit, and that's mostly from the narration style, I think. But thinking about it objectively, I don't think much has really changed. Actually, you know what? Let's watch a little bit together. Nope, that's cringe. Make it stop. Happy New Year. No criticisms. I enjoy your work. Thanks. Thank you. I hope you have, or I guess had, a great New Year yourself. I'd like to know what the biggest mistake / misconception you've had in your videos, in your opinion. Ooh, this is a tricky one. Do you mean factual mistake in one of my videos? It's hard to pick one out. Don't get me wrong, I make plenty of mistakes. I've had to retrospectively go back and correct some things before, such as pinning a comment. That's happened a lot, but off the top of my head, I can't think of one that is glaring or completely incorrect thing that I've said that would completely change the tone of the video, I suppose. But there is a big mistake that almost happened as I was making one of the videos. Recently, I released a video titled Natural Treatment Proponents Make Up Drugs, sorry about that, which as of the recording of that video was actually a long time ago, almost 3 years ago I've recorded that. And I've kept that video for a while as a backup in case I had a week where I couldn't upload. Well, before I actually released that video, I took a look at it again since it's been a while, and I didn't remember exactly what was talked about in the video, and there was this huge mistake in it where I completely misunderstood one of the points said by the person in this video. I misinterpreted that part so badly that my response to it made absolutely no sense, so I had to go back and correct it before releasing it, and my god, am I glad I caught the error. He was talking about MHC antigens, and for some reason my brain just didn't compute that correctly, but either way that mistake is lost in the void forever and we'll never know. Sorry, this probably isn't the answer you're looking for. Which conspiracy theory do you find the most stubborn to debunk? That's gotta be the flat earthers. Don't get me wrong, everyone is stubborn, including myself, but flat earthers are a special type of stubborn where they don't even consider your points at all, but they also talk to you in a very condescending way, as if you're literally an inferior human because you don't subscribe to the flat earth. Yep, I don't think there's any other group that comes close. That being said, I don't hate flat earthers the most out of every other group I debunk. What is a career in science like for you? Thanks for the question. Are you perhaps looking to get into science? For me, I can't imagine being in any other field. Don't get me wrong, science is not the best career field to pursue. If you're looking for a comfortable life with a high salary, there are many other career options out there that will fulfill that desire, such as computer science. But if you go into science, you better be driven by curiosity and the desire to learn. You better love science for what it is, because nothing else in this field will motivate you harder. But even someone like me who loves science isn't immune to burnout. I've pivoted my career a little bit, and now I'm a data manager / bioinformatician, which is still science, don't get me wrong, but different than what I've always known myself to be. My interests have shifted, but I'll always remain in science. Luck be with you. I appreciate the sentiment. Where did you first start liking science? What brought you to it? My reason for getting into science is actually a weird one. I just found interest in it during high school when I took higher level biology. It felt right to me. I did well in the class, which further boosted my ego, and now here I am. Sorry, I don't really have a meaningful reason as to how I got into this field. I'm sure most other YouTubers will probably say something dramatic and emotional to produce a bigger impact, but I'd rather just be honest here. Do you only tackle videos like anti-vax, flat earth, evolution deniers, or also more difficult divisive topics such as circumcision? The short answer is I tackle whatever I feel like at the moment, but you can sort of divide them into groups. There are creationists, flat earthers, anti-vax, pseudo-medicine proponents, and a little bit of politics when it comes to certain topics related to medicine, such as abortion and public health. The most controversial topic I suppose I have is when I talked about COVID responses, such as lockdowns. I've not talked about circumcision specifically. I don't think that warrants too much of a debate, but I'm always open to ideas. Why do you think people believe in conspiracy/pseudoscience theories? P.S. Thanks for the content. It is really good. Thank you. I appreciate your kind words. I think people actually fall into certain categories of mindsets. It's hard to accept such a thing, admitting that would basically be admitting that people think in patterns rather than have their own individual freedoms of thought. But I think that's absolutely true. When you're gripped by a certain conspiracy theory, it becomes a gateway to others, which is also kind of why we have two political parties here in the US, if you think about it. People usually fall under one or the other, and it's not often you see people who have their values split 50-50 between the two sides. And that's because I believe people think in certain patterns. If you distrust the government, you're likely to just be a distrustful person in general, and will likely support things like individual freedoms rather than groups. So I just think that people who believe in pseudoscience have fallen into that pitfall. Now, this is just my opinion, so take that with a grain of salt. Do you have any one-liners or short questions/statements to shut up believers who feel like proselytizing? I'm sure any one-liners they've already heard, but the most powerful one I would use, I guess, is just, where's the scientific evidence? But even that statement has a lot of baggage behind it that, if not explained, wouldn't reveal the whole meaning behind the question, so I'm not sure. I'm sure there's somebody else who has a better one than I do. How do flat earthers account for the fact that any major earthquake would irreparably change the night sky as would any major explosions like nukes? If the answer is the firmament, then what about high altitude nuke explosions? How do they not damage it? Also, where are the skyquakes that would originate from shifts in said firmament? These are fantastic questions that you would probably have to ask a flat earther to get a proper answer. I can only wear their shoes to some degree, but I assume their answer would be something like, the firmament is too high, or something like that. Also, they likely wouldn't even be able to comprehend the idea of skyquakes. Dark background, please. Yeah, that's been a request for a while now. I was thinking about changing it, but then I would have to be white over a black background. You can't ask me to change my very existence because your eyes can't handle the light. If I were to start a channel that was satirizing flat earthers by doing experiments wrong that somehow came to the right conclusion, is that deep or dumb? That sounds like a lot of effort, but if it's something you want to do, then go for it. I would say that's deep, not dumb, but only if you make it obvious. Also, I could see this being an idea for one video. Dedicating an entire channel to it might feel a little redundant, but at the end of the day, it's your channel and you can do whatever you want with it. Would you say that in real life you like to argue? I know I love to argue in YouTube comments. Good question. I used to enjoy arguing and would just be like you, arguing in the comment section on Reddit or wherever. But as I've gotten older, I've been doing much less of that. When I realize people are stubborn and most arguments don't go anywhere, I haven't been engaging in these debates. That being said, I do like watching other people argue. So sometimes I get pleasure out of reading comments in the YouTube sections, comment sections, or in other platforms of media. I know, weird guilty pleasure of mine. I just don't really like engaging in them myself anymore. All right, I think that's enough. Thank you all for watching, and thank you to everyone who submitted a question. I was thinking that soon I might release some sort of update video on the future of this channel, but we'll see. Okay, see y'all later and have a wonderful 2023.